il y a des besoins de commerce qui également fait partie de projets si là pour capable supporter citoyens yo lorsque besoin yo va faire sentir. N'a faut connaître jeudi là gagné dans zone Midwest Floride là côté que situation li ont annoncé le difficile avec menace tornado qui capable frapper zone si là. Oklahoma City, Little Arkansas ensemble avec Nashville Tennessee et bien tout côté ça yo c'est des zones qui menacent Atlanta Georgia tout yo en bas menace tornado ou bien cyclone qui déjà annoncé pour capable frapper ces zones. Responsable service national météorologie dans en pile état en dans pays a annoncé que saison cyclonique là li capable grave en pile. Jeudi à Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Columbus ensemble avec Rochester et bien Green Bay, toute zone ça c'est des zones qui en bas la pluie qui capable ouais tornado déjà a pu frapper et ville ça que nous citons là d'après information yo. Depuis matin état Florida li levé Zamounio média en demoiselle en pile la pluie a tombé depuis matin pas boycite dans état surtout dans zone Palm Beach côté que nous localiser. Et puis, toujours dans ça qui gagne avec actualité, sénateur yo gagné pour commencer à discuter là sur Big Beautiful Bill qui concerne le budget pour faire fonctionner le gouvernement américain et président américain Donald Trump il commencé déjà par mettre des oppositions contre sénateur qui pas tellement dansé collé avec Bill là Jean que li présenté sénateur ça gagne pile là dedans qui d'accord pour gagner plus copieux toujours dans une série de programmes tant que ça qui concerne les médicaments que yo eximon faut travail pour bénéficier programme qui gagne avec ti moun ka l'école qui gagne ti snack que yo konjouen l'école là ou petit la manger que yo konjouen pour mettre sous bouche autorité ont déjà coupé financement si là yo et puis yo exiger tout monde qui gagne food stamp yo faudrait-il que y a peu travail pour montrer également yo pas fait comme assez pour que yo capable bénéficier food stamp quand ta grand moun yo qui yo même kon bénéficier ti assistance sociale là et bien tout ça subi coupure également pas parler pour vétérans yo qui était la cause ancien chef d'État Joe Biden dans dernière déclaration que il fait semaine qui se passe à l'occasion journée vétéran yo monsieur pas content du tout avec coupure ça yo que yo organisé là dans cadre de présentation budget pour année fiscale n'a vivre là dans pays les États-Unis d'Amérique. Autorité la justice de Washington a cherché un citoyen qui a trois petites filles, trois petits monde que yo t'a accusé comme monde qui tuait tous les trois petits monde ça yo selon information yo. Conférence de presse Mtin responsable de la police yo bay yo fait comprendre que yo gen piste côté que monsieur t'a déjà changé machine mais il a continué chercher et yo boucler quelques zones dans la cour Washington côté yo t'a gagné information que lui-même li retrouvé. L'autre nouvelle n'a baou n'a faut connaître que Ukraine li organisé là yon l'autre coup lorsque yo gagné explosion en bas de l'eau en bas la mer qui crasé yon pont qui relié et dit la Russie étant à zone Crimée côté que la Russie occupé territoire c'est là qui c'est bout de pays Ukraine et bien yo coupé moyen pour que yo capable entrer avec facilité dans territoire Crimée c'est une explosion qui sorti en bas de l'eau qui crasé pont d'après dernière information ça fait deuxième gros attaque que Ukraine li mené contre et la Russie dans cadre de bataille qui mettait deux pays ça en face première elle était orchestrée sous territoire russe même lorsque yo crasé plus passé 40 avions militaires, 40 avions de guerre, pays la Russie. Et la Russie lui-même li répliqué avec drone que le jeté sur une ville dans la coupe Ukraine qui est déjà la cause que 4 personnes pour petit qui perdu la vie avec une quantité l'autre qui blessé. Des gens chita parlé qui commencé dans Istanbul pays la Turquie entre deux délégations qui représentaient deux pays et bien coupure il était fait rapide qui donc pas de gain trop temps été prend pour te discuter entre deux délégations ça seulement été proposé pour échanger un millier de prisonniers dans tous les deux camps selon dernière information. Dans le moment où on a parlé avec vous là, gagné responsable chambre des députés à qui au même a adressé à la presse n'a permis de gagner une lossienne déclaration responsable.
We need to be clear about this. The violence we are seeing against the Jewish community here in America is a direct result of the left's refusal to condemn and combat anti-Semitism. Sadly, this evil ideology has not only been tolerated by the left, it has been encouraged and enabled. When rampant anti-Semitic behavior exploded on college campuses in the wake of October 7th, Joe Biden and the Democrats refuse to hold these universities accountable. Even sitting Democrat members of Congress regurgitated talking points from Hamas terrorists and normalized riots that do the same. It's unacceptable. To add insult to injury, the Colorado terrorist was, again, an illegal alien who was allowed in the United States by the Biden administration. For 4 years, Joe Biden and the Democrats failed open border policies, welcomed unknown members of potential terrorists into our nation, setting the stage for scenarios like the one that we saw this week. By letting millions of unvetted illegal aliens into our communities, the Biden administration left a national security mess, and the Trump administration is racing to clean it up. Border security and deportation efforts are urgent. Lives are at stake. Our One Big Beautiful bill strengthens these efforts by providing additional funding for more deportations, more Border Patrol agents, and more border wall. We're going to continue to work with the Senate to get this done for the American people. And as we've said every week since we started this march, failure is not an option. The safety of our communities depends on it. With that, I turn it over to our leader.
Thank you, Whip. We all mourn those who were the victims of these attacks here in Washington, D.C.
Avec rappelons branché PSTARS FM Radio Télévision et puis n'a pas continuer avec bulletin de nouvelles ça n'a faut connaître que gros rappeur superstar Sean Didicom monsieur li a pu suivre déroulement jugement le kounya là dans tribunal côté que autorité judiciaire yo mené sous plateforme nan yon expert en matière de vidéo qui était lui-même gagné avec vidéo qui était enregistré dans hôtel Continental dans la cour Los Angeles côté que Didi t'a avec yon bouboutli elle t'a traîné manger dans couloir hôtel si là après dispute qui était gagné entre eux-mêmes. Responsable sécurité a déjà venu pour dire que il te bal $100,000 pour vidéo ça pour que vidéo a pas de diom et bien pour capable confirmer véracité originalité vidéo que yo gen nan men yo et bien yo obligé les yon expert qui lui-même a pu fournir information pour qui ça yo obligé les moun ça c'est pour capable vérifier tout bon et que vidéo ça li réel c'est un bagage que yo fabriqué contre ancien superstar rappeur gagné ancien boutli qui était déjà témoigné gagné un ami ancien boutli tout cap gagné pour témoigner jeudi et que monsieur était menacé pour cap vider à terre nan vider en bas côté que il était dans 17e floor balcon côté li ménage li était habité d'après information yo. Donc Red branché Ppstars FM Radio Télévision nous va venir avec plus de détails pour vous dans prochaine sortie à n'a tourné dans parlement américain côté que responsable au niveau chambre des députés représentant parti républicain avait fourni explication par jeudi avec la presse en cadre rencontre habituelle qui yo gain avec la presse.
We said there is no plan B. The American economy, the voters of this country demanded that Congress deliver on the promises that President Trump made to get this country turned around. And what we do in this bill delivers on so many different fronts to help grow America's economy, to create jobs, to put more money in the pockets of hardworking families. That's been the focus of this bill from the very beginning. And I think there's some people that start reading too many Congressional Budget Office reports and ignore the lessons of history. And there's an old saying that if you ignore the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I think it's important to go down that road of history and go back to 2017. You don't need to go back that far to see how wrong the CBO has been when it comes time to make prognostications on economic growth. They've always been wrong, and they've always ignored what tax cuts will do to grow the American economy. In 2017, when we started this process, when President Trump came in and said, we're going to make America competitive again, we were at a 35% corporate rate, and we were losing jobs all across the globe. Every month, you'd see a great American company move to a foreign country, and they would take the jobs along with them. Millions of jobs were leaving America. They were called inversions. You don't maybe know that term as well anymore because we haven't had an inversion since we passed TCJA in 2017. But if you go back, look at what CBO said about that bill. They said it would cost a decrease in revenue to the tune of $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. Now, you go look at the numbers, They were off by more than $1.5 trillion. Because what they left out of that report, just like they're leaving it out again, CBO's making the same mistakes, they ignore economic growth. What we saw in 2017 when we cut taxes is that businesses started growing. They started giving pay raises to their workers. They hired millions more people. Unemployment went virtually to zero. Inflation dropped dramatically. People had more money in their pockets because wages were up. And all of those things produced more money for the American Treasury. It all happened, and yet CBO failed to recognize that. And they're making the same mistake again. And anybody who repeats CBO's analysis is also making those same mistakes. If you ignore the growth that will come with keeping tax rates low, with helping businesses invest more in their workers, giving pay raises, putting more money in the pockets of waiters and waitresses, overtime workers not having to pay taxes on overtime, bonus depreciation, immediate expensing, all the things that will generate economic growth and ultimately put more money in the pockets of workers and send more money up to the federal treasury here in Washington. CBO missed all of that in 2017, and they're missing it again this time. That's the only way they come to a conclusion that it would increase the deficit. This bill will actually reduce the deficit if you recognize the historical economic growth that has always been there. To say you're going to get 1.8% growth, at a minimum, we think you can get 2.5% to 4% growth. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says over 4% economic growth. So I get that, we've got to play by the rules of the referee, but the referee's been wrong. We got a referee that tries to sack our quarterback a lot, and yet we still manage to play by those rules and deliver for the American people, because when this bill is passed and signed into law, hopefully by July 4th, when the Senate does their work, you're going to see economic growth in this country like we haven't seen in generations, meaning more pay in the pockets of workers, and you're going to see more Treasury money coming in because of the growth in the American economy. It's happened before, and it will happen again. We just need to keep moving forward, and the Senate's got the bill now, and I'm confident they're going to move it on and ultimately back to us, to the President's desk. And finally, you saw yesterday, the White House sent the rescissions package. This is the first maybe of many. We are now putting that in bill format. We'll file that bill hopefully by tomorrow and then bring it up to the floor quickly and get rid of more waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. This will deal with, obviously, the abuses we all saw at USAID, NPR, and public broadcasting. So those are the things that are going to be in this rescissions package. We're going to continue working with President Trump to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and get the American economy turning around again. And the person who's leading that charge is our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Rarely do I get to raise the podium, so let me do this for a second. Great to see you all this morning. Look, our leadership team had very much looked forward to this press conference, our weekly press conference with you today, because we wanted to celebrate this historic passage of our big, beautiful bill 4 days before Memorial Day, our self-imposed deadline. And that's a big achievement, and I'll address it. But obviously, our attention has been diverted and our mood very much dampened by these atrocities that continue against our Jewish friends and neighbors. It's really something that's been discussed already this morning, but this attack over the weekend was actually the second time in 3 weeks that our country's witnessed these horrific acts of anti-Semitic terror here on American soil. And it was just, of course, a few miles down the road, 2 Israeli embassy staffers, a young couple who had planned to wed soon, were senselessly gunned down on the street. And the killer said, when they asked him what his motivation was, he said, quote, "He did it for Palestine." This weekend, an Egyptian terrorist in Boulder, Colorado, Mohammed Soleiman, lit at least 12 Jewish people on fire. They were at a parade, an event there. He told police he wanted to kill every single one of them. And you know what he said when he yelled out during the attack? He said, "Free Palestine." We also can't forget that in April, a terrorist burned the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, attempting to kill Jewish Governor Josh Shapiro and his sleeping family inside. The search warrants found that the terrorist targeted Shapiro because of, quote, perceived injustices against Palestine. There's a theme here. Why would terrorists target a young innocent couple or peaceful protesters or the governor of an American state with no jurisdiction over a war that's happening 5,000 miles away? Because it isn't about Palestine, it isn't about Gaza, it isn't about any particular conflict. It's because these people want a complete and total extermination of the Jewish people. And there is a targeted left-wing anti-Semitic terror movement on the rise in America. And we have to address this first and foremost. Members of this institution and the media have a moral obligation to call this out. We do not equivocate, as the leader said. We do not both sides this issue at all. This is very clear. It's light versus darkness. It is an evil that we are confronting. And we'll continue to call it out, and the Trump administration and Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel will continue to pursue these anti-Semitic threats and actions against the Jewish people on our soil and to bring these violent criminals to justice. And we will speak with moral clarity, and we will demand the same of all of our colleagues in both parties to do that, and I hope they will. According to DHS, Solomon, this criminal, this violent, sick individual that did this stuff over the weekend, applied for a tourist visa in 2022. He applied for asylum. He's been living in the U.S. on an expired visa since March of 2023. If you apply Democrat logic to this case, Solomon was one of their constituents, as they say, and under their framing, he was just a Colorado man, right? But when you see Democrats ramping up attacks on ICE agents and storming ICE detention facilities and calling for the dismantlement of ICE, just know that this is who they're defending. This is the result. Fortunately, President Trump has quickly slammed the border shut by simply enforcing existing law, but this administration needs the resources to detain and process and deport the millions of dangerous illegals who President Biden welcomed into the country. And this is why we need the one big beautiful bill. One of the many reasons for President Trump's desk as quickly as possible to sign into law, because it, among the other features in the bill, it includes $45 billion to expand ICE detention capacity, $1 billion to hire 200 immigration judges and to expand immigration courtroom space. There's $1 billion in there to hire 2,700 new ICE Office of Principal Legal Advisor attorneys to expedite removal proceedings, and $14 billion for air and ground transportation sufficient to support at least 1 million removals per year. We need to go find the other Solomons and get them out of America, and that's what this bill will do. We got to get it signed into law as soon as possible. Yesterday, the House, changing subjects here, the House did receive the rescissions package from the White House, and we were happy to receive it. It's going to claw back $9.4 billion, wasteful spending. 8.3 of that is in the foreign aid, USAID abuses area, and $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. These are common sense cuts, and the American people are behind them. I'll tell you why. Just in the Corporation for Public Broadcasting space, don't forget, the NPR refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story. They repeatedly insisted that COVID-19 did not originate in a lab, and they ran stories defending looting during the Summer of Love, if you remember all that. Its CEO admitted that she regards, quote, truth as a harmful, quote, distraction from NPR's objectives. PBS produced a movie titled Real Boy, which celebrates a transgender teen's transition. This is all with taxpayer dollars. PBS has featured drag queens in programming for little kids. There is no reason for any media organization to be singled out to receive federal funds. We're in a different era now, especially those that appear to have so little regard for the truth. On the foreign aid front, we're cutting things like $6 million for net zero cities in Mexico, $4 million for sedentary migrants in Colombia, whatever that means, $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for teaching young children how to make environmentally friendly reproductive health decisions. We're not making this stuff up. $1 million for voter ID in Haiti, while they oppose voter ID here. This rescissions package is the manifestation of the DOGE effort, which has transformed the way American people view government, and it's going to ultimately ensure greater accountability in government going forward. In addition to codifying the work of Elon Musk and DOGE this week, the House will continue to codify the President's executive orders. We've got 3 of those on the floor this week. The list real quick, Representative Beth Van Dyne's American Entrepreneurs Act ensures taxpayer-funded loans go only to Americans, codifying President Trump's executive order to end taxpayer-subsidized open borders. Representative Brad Finstad's Save SBA from Sanctuary Cities Act moves SBA offices out of sanctuary cities and into non-sanctuary municipalities, and will codify President Trump's executive order to protect American communities from criminal aliens. And the last one this week is Representative Rob Bresnahan's CEASE Act, which aligns with recent action taken by the Small Business Administration to restore oversight capabilities to the SBA by limiting the number of for-profit small business lending companies. These are common sense provisions. They deserve to be signed into law, and this is a continuing series of things that we've signed into law, executive orders. There are many more to come, and you'll see the House continue that effort in earnest this week. Let me take a few questions. I can guess what they'll be. Chad.
How can you explain the fact that Republicans voted for this interim spending bill back in March, greenlighting this money, and 2-3 months later, then you want to take back that money? That seems inconsistent.
Well, if you're talking about, for example, this USAID money and this kind of stuff,
That was approved in the CR back in...
Yeah, it was. And here's the point. This is a critical point. When I met with Elon in his office back in early February, he had just gotten into it. They were just uncovering the USAID abuses. And they went after USAID first for their review, their audits, because USAID screamed the loudest, opposed the loudest of this accountability measure. And so they effectively put, the scrutiny target on their own backs. And Elon and I were in his office late one night. We were talking about this, and I said he had finished USAID. They were just starting on Social Security. And he was finding all these abuses, and we were talking, and he and I were getting increasingly excited together about this new era of accountability, and it occurred to me we were excited for different reasons. And I said, Elon, you're excited because you're looking at this as a data analyst and a scientist, and I'm looking at it as a constitutional law attorney and a legislator and his novice historian, right? But, this is about more than saving money. This is about restoring the framers' original vision for the Constitution. The framers of our magnificent form of government, our matchless Constitution, what they envisioned, and in fact what they designed, was a small, lean federal government. They wanted most of the power reserved for the states, for the people at a local level, the closer to the people, because there's more accountability and efficiency. And so the DOGE effort overall, what it does is it restores the framers' vision, because what Elon was able to do, what he's been able to do, what DOGE is able to do, its lasting legacy, is they cracked the code. They got inside the belly of the beast. He was inside the bureaucracy, the agencies, with his algorithms, crawling, finding all the irregularities and the abuses. He did something we had never been able to do before, Chad, not as long as I've been in Congress, in 9 years, and not for decades. I told Elon that night, I said, you're doing something that we were not capable of doing. We've tried to perform our oversight responsibility, but Congress has not been able to get the things to uncover the abuses that you found. We didn't know we were funding transgender operas in Peru, obviously, right? We would have stopped that. But our committees did their diligent work. They've done oversight. They've had hearings with the heads of the bureaucratic agencies, the executive agencies. Subpoenas have been issued. But never did they turn over this level of data and this level of detail. It was unknowable to us until now. And so, yes, we can't act fast enough on these rescissions to claw back these abuses, because it happened without Congress's knowledge. And that's a really important thing to point to. And look, you give credit where credit is due, and I credit Elon and the DOGE effort for doing that.
Doesn't that undercut Congress? I mean, if that was Congress...
No, Chad.
I understand the uniqueness of his situation.
Yeah, but what it's going to do, the lasting legacy of this, and the reason it's so important, and the reason they deserve accolades, is because they have done a reset in Washington. Now, everybody knows what the abuse is, not just Congress, but the American people. And we'll be able to demand and ensure greater accountability going forward, and that is a huge innovation. Back row, yeah.
We're listening here to House.
Président Chambre des députés Mike Johnson, qui c'est leader, qui a pu répondre aux questions aux journalistes après l'autre responsable au niveau comité leadership Parti républicain dans Chambre des députés a pu expliquer position yo sous Big Beautiful Bill qui concernait budget fonctionnement gouvernement pour année fiscale là n'a pas vivre là. Madame, monsieur, ou branchez Ppstars FM, radio-télévision, rendez-vous à 11h.